how to use the gradient feature in Photoshop via the gradient tool. Now I'm using CC220, but much the same in 2019, 2018, etc. The panel has slightly changed. So use the gradient tool, just select the gradient tool via the tools panel and then just click there and top left and that little drop down and you'll see a range of gradients. Now 2020 now includes a feature for grouping the gradients. So it's slightly different from the way it was done in earlier versions. But it's basically still the same. There's still all the gradients, but now you can move them around much, much more. So there's all the gradients you can use, but you can also create your own gradients as well. And I'll show you how to do that in other videos. In this video, I'm just going to show how to use the existing ones that are supplied with Photoshop. Simply just select the gradient. You can see as you run through there, just click and the gradient in that little top left will change. Now, this point, it's not applied. It's not applied until you apply it using the gradient tool in the tools panel. There's a number of options, types, gradient types. You've got, this one is linear. Where you first click is the origin point for the gradient. When you apply it, you can stretch it out to a particular length and then release the mouse, and then that will generate the gradient. You can also change the angle as well. Some of them you can't. Obviously with linear one you can. But with radial, it's just length and an origin point. You can see there, you've got pink to purple. Simply click anywhere on the screen, but I'm just going from left to right. You can see pink. At the top left, you can see the pink and then purple. You can see then in the actual image, you can see pink to purple as well. Might make it a bit more clear with slightly more complex gradient. So you can see there, again, pink, but this time blue at the far end. Again, stretch out. You can see it's a straight line here. Doesn't have to be a straight line, but it is a straight line all the time, but it's across, all the way across. That's by holding the shift key down. That constrains it to that. You can go down or across 45 degrees, 90 degrees, etc. But if you don't hold the shift key down, you can apply it at any angle. So there I'm using linear. You can see it just applied all the way across. All the colours are applied straight across. Now, you don't have to do from far left to far right. You can do it just at any point. And if you create it very, very close, if you create a very, very narrow gradient, when you click the origin point and then drag just a little way, you will see a very narrow band for your gradient. So you can create all kinds of different gradients from the basic same gradient. And you can see there, I've just released it very quickly, the mouse. So the blue is predominant. So you've got mainly blue, and you've got the rest of the gradient is compressed in that left. And you can go across a bit further there or a bit less. Each time you do it, just go all the way across. You can see pink all the way to blue. Now you don't have to confine it or constrain it to the document itself. You can go beyond that. So you can go straight out, further out. So if you go all the way and then beyond, so you go all the way over and then release, you'll see there's no blue at all. I mean, the gradient has still got blue, but it's gone off the screen. So you've got more of the pink and the orange. Now you can do it at any angle. Again, I'm holding the shift key down. So that's just doing it at 90 degrees or 90 degrees or 45 degrees, etc. So you can see you can create all kinds of different linear designs simply by releasing the mouse as well as changing the origin point. You've got the gradient tool there, but what you can also do, you can add shapes, and I'm going to show you. Now, I could have an image here. I haven't got an image open, but I'm just going to quickly create some shapes. And then I'm going to apply the gradient to the shapes, or on top of the actual shapes I've just created. So go back to the gradient tool there. And let's say you could use an image in this case. I'm just using, now if you're using the blending mode of normal, you can see that in the top, right at the top, in the middle, you've got blending mode at normal. That will just cover it completely. But if you use darken, it doesn't cover it in the same way. It combines with the colour, the original, the earlier colour, in a different way. Now, I'm not going to go and show you the process behind darken and multiply and all those sort of things. It's quite complex maths, relatively complex maths. But what it does do, you can see that you can combine the colours in many different ways just by changing the blending mode. So it might just darken the image, it might just lighten the image, or apply it if it's darker than the colours you're applying, and so on and so on. And you can create all kinds of different colour combinations simply by using these blending modes. And you can find tutorials about blending modes on the Graphicxtras channel. Difference is always quite a good one as well. But again, this, I'm applying it to some very basic shapes, but you could apply it to an image as well. Most of the time I keep it as normal, but you can apply it with all the others. But also you can use opacity as well. Opacity is also very useful. So you can apply it maybe at 50%. So you will see some of the underlying image, if there was anything there to. Of course, at the moment, it's just a white background now. But you can see the transparency now. And that will be just faded. So instead of that really intense, colourful design, that gradient, it's still there, it's still the same gradient, but now it's applied as go back to the gradient tool there and apply it. Still you can see the underlying image. You can actually see some banding as well. There's some slight banding with gradients, and there's always an issue with that. And you might like to apply some noise, maybe some blurring, up to you how to. And again, there's videos on that sort of subject elsewhere. You can also reverse the gradient. So you see there, you've got the pink there and you've got the blue there. What you can do, you can just go over to the reverse and it will reverse. That's as simple as that. Just instead, it will do it blue to pink instead. That's just so you don't need to go and change all the stops for the gradient. There's also other options like dither and transparency. I'm not going to show those. But there's also different types of gradient. I mean, I've been showing linear all the way through so far. But you've also got different types, and the types are in that top left beside the gradient. So I'm using linear, but you can use radial. Sadly, there's no elliptical feature. There's no ellipse in Photoshop. It's just purely a circle. And you can see now, again, that gradient. Just drag, and you can change the origin point. So you can apply the gradient at any point. And if you apply a very, very, very small gradient, just drag it and then release very quickly, you can create a very small circle. And again, it still reflects that gradient in the left corner. So you've got the blue on the edge. You can see the blue in the top left, and you've got the pink in the core in the centre. And that's always the way it's done. So you've got the pink there and you've got the blue, so pink to blue. And again, you change your origin point. You can change the length of the gradient, or the radius in this case. So you can create all kinds of circular designs very quickly. So you've got linear. And again, I was going to quickly show you, you can vary the angle as well, because I was showing earlier holding the shift key down. But you can vary the angle of the linear as well. Changing the angle of the radial makes no difference. There are a couple others as well. Not just that one, but circular or radial. There's also the angular, or conical, it would be, I suppose, more in other applications. So you can apply that. Now, this is slightly different, this one, in the sense, again, you've got the blue there, that very intense blue, but it links to the pink, the side. So you've got pink on the left and blue on the right of the gradient. You can see that goes all the way around. So it follows all the way around. So it's blue going through that other pink and then orange and then to the light pink. But it does create that line. There is a way around that, of course, as with most things. What you need to do is make both of the ends the same colour, and then you won't get that very sharp line in between. And some of the gradients probably have that in there. But you can, like I say, modify the gradients as well. So you've got that design. You can see now, again, you've got the light blue all the way around to that deep pink colour. So that's the angular. And now what you've got also got reflected or mirror. It creates a mirror. It's basically the same as linear. But instead of now what you can see, you've got the blue there on the left and you've got the pink at the end. So when you apply it, again, you can vary the angle of that. It doesn't have to be straight across, straight down. You can vary the angle. You can vary the location. You can see the pink from the edge all the way into the centre. And the centre is the blue that can be found on the left. It's always the left will be the core design. And again, you can vary the how big the line is simply by stretching out or releasing very quickly. So you can create a very, very, like that, just very thin line can be created very quick and easy. You can, again, hold down the shift key. So it's a straight line straight down or straight at 90 degrees or 45. So it's a great way of creating a very basic straight line. And as you can vary the colours of the gradient, and the gradient colours can be changed in all kinds of ways, you can create all kinds of different straight lines. Again, you can see you've got that orange, you've got the yellow in the centre, that's on the left of the gradient, and you've got the rest of it is the orange on both sides. So it's reflected. Really useful for creating like pattern designs, because you've got a seamless tile, especially if you do it from 90 degrees, that is. And again, you can change the blending modes as well. You can change the opacity, etc. And combine them. The last one, the diamond design. Again, like I say, there's the opacity, but there's the diamond design. That's the far end of the types. Select that, and what you can do, you can create a diamond design. Now, it's not particularly clear in this one, it's a slightly blurry design. So, but you can see, actually that's more a square, because what I've done is I've applied it at 45 degrees. That's at 45. If you apply it at 90 degrees, it will be, but it's great for creating a star sort of burst design. So if you want to create a star design, it's very useful. Create that slightly more complex design. And you can see then, if you do it in 90 degrees, you get a diamond design. It's more a slightly rotated square, to be honest. It's not really very diamond-like, but I think they call it diamond. And again, you've got that same thing. You've got the pink in the core. That's the one that's on the left. And you've got the blue that's the outer part of the gradient. So you can create all kinds of diamonds as well as square designs using this approach. And you can make it as small by making a very, very short line when you release, or if you want to extend it out, you can extend it out of the document again. Exactly the same. So you can create very small squares as well as very small diamonds or very large diamonds. And again, you can apply this with all the other gradients as well. Now you can also apply the gradients with other tools. You've got the rectangular marquee tool or any other selection as well. Just select that and then just create a selection. Now this selection constrains the range of the gradient. So go back to the gradient tool and the gradient will be only applied to that selection within that bounds. You've got the gradient there. Just simply go into the centre of that selection and apply it. And it will only be confined to that. And again, you can vary the selection as well. So it's not, obviously doesn't have to be just a square selection. You can make all kinds of different selections and the gradient will be applied solely to that. Gradients can also be applied to layers. So create a new layer and that gradient is applied to a layer. What you can do is go to the window menu and layers. Display the layers there. You'll see the layer that's got the gradient. And of course, what you can do, you can go and create another layer. So layer and new layer. Click OK. And you can use the same gradient or a different gradient and just apply it, create another gradient. So you've got two layers now. Well, what you can do, you can blend between them. You can go to normal, darken, colour burn, so on and so on. You can run through the whole lot. And of course, as it's a layer, you can always remove the layer as well. You can just delete it. You can also turn the layer into a smart object via the layer menu. You can also duplicate the layer, so you can create multiple copies of that gradient design and then combine them in different ways. Perhaps apply different effects to each layer. Or maybe use masks. And that's for another video. You can also, once you're happy with your design, you can always go to the layer menu and flatten the image. Or merge the layers. What you can also do with gradients, you go over there to the gradient tool again. You can apply the gradients multiple times. And go to the blending mode. So if you apply it, now if I go to the gradients, I can apply it and it will be covered up. But you can also fade the gradient as well. I'm going to go for the blending mode in a few seconds. But you can go to the edit menu and fade the gradient. So you can apply it and then you can fade it. Edit and Fade Gradient. And the Fade Gradient gives an option for opacity as well as, again, access to blending modes. Now you've got blending modes when you apply it, but you've also got blending modes later on with the fade. So you can change your mind. You can change your opacity also via the fade as well. It's basically the same equivalent as changing the blending mode and opacity when you apply it. So you can create a lighter design. But you can also, like I say, go to the blending modes and change that. Apply. So I'm just selecting a different gradient now. Got the gradient tool selected. And then what you can do, you can go to the blending mode, which is in the center, top center there. And you can go to, say, lighten or difference. Select difference. And then just go and change the origin point and length and apply a gradient. Now you're not changing the existing gradient. You're applying that on top of that existing gradient. So you can see straight away you can create all kinds of different colour combinations of gradient by using different blending modes. So you can create like something that looks like a sort of planet with a purple sun behind it, or very abstract bubble looking designs, simply by changing the blending mode and changing the gradient as well. So all kinds of different combinations can be made just by using blending modes and gradients. You don't have to use difference, you can use screen. Overlay, and I'm using radial at this point, but I can change it. So I don't need to use radial, I could use linear and apply that on top of that existing design. Just undo that now. What you can also do, go to the gradient tool, and you can create presets, which are quite useful. Presets store that gradient along with the gradient type as well as the blending mode and also the opacity. So everything that's set in that gradient, and then you can bring it back at any point. So I'm just going to select that gradient. I'm going to use like radial or angular. Using the blend mode, you can just apply it very quickly like that. But what you can do, just go over to the presets, which are in the far left. Drop down there, and you can got a little option there for new tool preset. That's in that little gear design there. Select that, then give it a name. And it says include gradient. I would suggest include the gradient. That's the gradient with that, the pink and blue. So give it a name. Photoshop comes with a couple of gradients. It doesn't come with many in that presets. So you can create your own very quickly and easily. And any combination you think, well, that's a really good preset combination, you can then go to that presets and store it away. And that will store the blending mode, opacity, type, and the gradient. You can see the other gradient presets I've already created earlier. And there are combinations of like angular and blending modes, normal, etc. You can apply those very quick and easy. So that's one good thing about the angular one. It creates that lovely sort of beams that are coming out. You can see then you've got the blending mode lighten with this one. So that creates a nice sort of blurry, sort of shimmery sort of design. And you can vary the gradients. I've got the gradient in there is slightly more complex. It's made up of a number of stops. I'll show that in a different video. And there's the gradient that we've saved. That was the preset that I've just created. And you can just apply it very quickly, easily over that design. So straight away you can create some really quite unusual designs using gradients. Very abstract designs, as well as potentially an interesting sort of laser beam display design. All via that preset feature. So your presets should not be forgotten. I think presets are really a nice feature, and hopefully you'll use them to store your amazing gradients. And there's a number of options on that right side menu. There's various reset the tools, reset tool preset, load tool presets. So you can create tool preset files and save them away for future use as well. Or maybe from other people and give you their presets. And you probably can find presets on the web as well. And of course, once you've done that with your gradient, you create all these lovely gradient designs. What you can do, you can just go to the filter menu and maybe use blur gallery, render, or stylize and oil paint. Just apply that. Apply multiple effects. So you can turn that layer into a smart object and then apply smart filters, which you can then change at a later point. And once you've applied the effect, of course, you can then continue with the gradient tool and add some more gradients on top of the applied effect to create some very abstract designs. But as mentioned, you can change the gradients as well. You can modify the gradients. Just click on the gradient, that top left gradient, and then you can bring up the gradient editor. And then you can modify the stops. I'm not going to do that in this video. That's for another video. But you can change the stops. So that gradient is made up of that. You can see pink all the way through, orange, slightly different pink, and then the blue. And you've got access to all the presets as well via that presets panel. You can also change the opacity. You can also change the type of gradient. There's two different types. There's solid and there's noise. The ones I've been showing are solid ones. The noise ones are quite effective as well. And you can also change the smoothness of the gradient as well. So you can see the stops there, those little things, and you can move them. So you don't have to keep them in that position. You can change them, vary the gradient in numerous ways. You can also import gradients as well. So click OK. But gradients can be changed. You don't have to use just the default gradients that come with Photoshop. But there's an awful lot of different gradients that are available. Cloud, greys, and many, many more. But gradients are a really effective tool, and you can create all kinds of different things. As I mentioned, you can use them as overlays. You can use them to create wonderful background designs, combine them with effects, and much, much more. So they're really worth checking out. There's also an option now in Photoshop CC220, and you can see the panel there with all the various groupings. There's also in the window menu an option for gradients panel as well. So you can go there and modify your gradients, change everything, reposition things in all kinds of ways. But I want to show you in this video that gradients are a pretty powerful feature. And you can, like I say, combine them also with effects as well. And you can also use them as a great source for things like 3D effects. You can also recolour them using the image menu and adjustments. So you can go to hue and saturation and recolour your design. You can use liquify, you can use wave and many others to totally distort the gradient, to change it in all kinds of amazing ways. I hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphicxtras channel, always adding lots of tutorials about Photoshop, Illustrator, Affinity Photo and many others. Please add a comment or two, that's always appreciated. Also, a dislike or like. Thank you much.